It's okay.
So we'll just wait. I think they've already joined. A lot of students have come in, Xavier. So yeah, thank you for coming in, and we welcome you to the special masterclass at United World Institute of Design at Karnataka University. And we have a lot of students from various departments. We have students from foundation department, transportation, product, interiors, fashion, and we are all eager to hear from you. And maybe you can start with your introduction, and maybe you can continue then.
So, well, first of all, I mean, good. Well, it's still there's no morning anymore for you guys. I mean, it's good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Well, thanks for inviting. First of all, it's very nice being here. So my name is Xavier. I'm French, French national, but I mean I left France at the end of my studies, and then spent 20 years in Sweden and Finland. Then returned to France for a few years, about 8 years, and now moved to Italy 4 years ago. So I've been living in Italy for 4 years. Um, So during this masterclass, I mean, this is always a very interesting exercise because it's a bit of a retrospective that allows you to think on yourself. So what I would like to share with you is that I will explain to you a bit what has been my journey into design, which is a pretty unorthodox journey into design, if I may. But I think it's a pretty rich one, and I hope that in with the experiences that I will be sharing with you. So I will show you like a glimpse of like the very diverse types of projects that I've had the chance to work on. I hope that this will give you a very broad view of what design is, what it does, what is the value that it brings to the people for whom we do it, not only the end users whom we design for, but I mean also the clients that we work with, and that at the end of the days are, as designers, are paying our salaries. So maybe I will start. So I have assembled, as you will see, I don't have like one presentation. I have actually pulled like quite a number of material that I would like to that will use as a basis for running this masterclass. And maybe I will start from a bit about myself. So let me go here. No, wait a second. I need to share my screen first of all, because I mean, now I'm not sharing anything. So let's see. Let's see if I have the right to share my screen. Yes. No, you need to allow me to share my screen.
Yeah, now you can share.
That's better.
Okay.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So let me go into this first one, like a bit of an intro. Maybe I will just like remove this one. Better. Okay. So let's start about a small introduction about myself. Who am I? So, so you will see, and I will tell you a bit about my journey and the education that I had. I mean, from a very early age, I've been like drawing a lot. So I was like a drawing like all my childhood and into my university years. And then this is like, for instance, like a little drawing that I did when I moved to Finland. And it says, it's French, but it says, well, finally, a quiet place to write you a small letter, and then you see the Finnish forest, which is a magical place, and where I mean you can like guess these magical creatures that are like looming in the background. Another thing is that I've been selling a lot in my childhood. I was like a training officer. I mean, I was doing this for free. But I've been doing this for many years, selling not for the competition, but I mean for the pleasure of being in nature, and I think for the beauty of the boats. And then when I was a kid, again, I mean I've been like drawing, like selling boat plans, building models. I mean this is one that I did for I think when I was like 12 or 13. So I mean as you can see, I mean, there has been always this like creative part in me. Later on in my life, I mean, I had a chance to work a bit. I mean, that was for personal projects, but I mean, designing like cottages and taking a lot of pleasure in exploring new ways of like building things. Like woodworking is something that I very much like. This is like a sauna that I designed and built in Finland, which was really tearing apart. I mean, the very basic way in which like a sauna is normally built in this country is normally a very close place. You're in the middle of beautiful nature that you cannot see from the inside. So I tried to reverse this by actually removing completely and make the wall completely invisible. Even, I mean, the frame is not visible. So it is as if you were projected in the in the nature. And then I mean, and experimenting for myself. So I mean, even like building stuff myself to understand how it is being done. So all this is yeah, and a bit of music. So I studied music when I was a kid, was playing flute, and then returning to when I came to Finland, I've been singing in the choir. Choir singing is a long established tradition in Finland, and I've been singing for like about 15 years there. So all this is to give you a bit of an idea of who I am as a person. But what happened is, interestingly enough, I ended up doing things which is completely misaligned with all what I just said. So I ended up like studying business administration, and actually like realizing from an early point that I mean this probably was not the best choice for me, but there I was. So I mean, at least I brought it to an end. But then, I mean, I worked for a couple of years. Actually, that was my first job, like in Sweden, doing what I had been trained for, and definitely getting confirmation that I didn't like it. So I moved to Finland at that point, and I decided to return to studies, and I studied like I took a new master just to be able to continue my studies in the Finnish system, which was a bit different by then from the French system. And then I studied like a PhD in industrial and development economics. And I had immediately the chance to work for the World Bank on a research project. It was pure applied research project in sub-Saharan Africa, in Tanzania, where we were actually following and trying to understand the mechanics, the microeconomic mechanics of the working of these economies that, I mean, were not working. So, and this is very important for me because I mean, you will see that I mean, when we talk about design, research is an essential and core part of the work of a designer. And as you will see, my entry into the world of design has been actually from research. So my first experience was not with design; it was actually with doing this research, which was like a combo of qualitative and quantitative research. I did that for a few years, like in parallel with my studies. And then, I mean, I got a grant with the UN in the World Institute for Development Economics Research in Helsinki. And then for 1 year, I did pure like theoretical research in financial economics. And then, I mean, I have to say that this was the end of it. I mean, it was too much. And then, I mean, I remember, and this is where, I mean, since I mean, you're all starting your courses, I understand the importance of your teachers and of good teachers. So I had my thesis director that at the end of this period of 1 year came to me, and this guy had the courage to tell me, you know, Xavier, I think you should think twice about like continuing an academic career, because I'm not completely sure that this is actually where you will succeed and where you will thrive. Think twice. It may be that you're better suited for working in the industry and in a company setup. So of course, I mean, I took it a bit as a blow. I would be lying if I said otherwise, but it really was a wake-up call. And then made me realize that, I mean, he had actually had a point, because I mean, if you remember like how I started this introduction about myself, it's very much about like the doing, about the creativity, about inventing, which is exactly what we're not doing, especially in that particular field. So then, I mean, at that point, I started to knock some doors, and we're back in 1999. And 1999 is like the beginning of like the web boom. So what happened is that I joined a company in Finland, in Helsinki, called Satama Interactive. It's a company that doesn't exist anymore. It was by far one of the first and largest digital agencies in Europe. And at that time, we were actually next to Nokia. And Nokia back then was actually, I mean, this like superpower. I mean, the entire Finland, the entire country was actually running on Nokia's fuel and work. And Nokia was our main client. So we were actually the agency of record for Nokia for all things digital. And I joined this company by doing research. So basically, what the company was doing, I mean, these were the early days of like digital marketing. So they were doing like zillions of campaigns, one after the other, to actually support the launch of the new phones. And remember, this was a time where a company like Nokia was launching maybe, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 different models per year. So you had this continuous flow of like marketing activities, and this company was like essentially doing that. But what they realized is that actually all this thing was pure creativity, but meaningless creativity. So what they were lacking is actually a clear indication of what is it that we're trying to achieve. So the whole connection with the actual strategy and business demands of Nokia was lacking. And then what also was lacking was the means to evaluate and to understand, well, is the stuff that we're designing working or is it not working? And they had no clue. So I studied this work, I entered this company and created like a small unit, which was called M&M's, which was like completely liberally borrowed from a well-known brand of sweets. And M&M stood for measurement and metrics. So the unit that I created was actually in charge of like helping frame the objectives of every project that we were undertaking for our clients, and then find ways to measure, I mean, the effectiveness of like the stuff that we were doing. And these were the early days of web analytics. So we actually like worked with Nokia developing one of the first like global web analytics system. Then, and this is a view of, it was interesting because I mean, you will see, as you know, I'm now working in Pininfarina. Pininfarina is about automotive, essentially. Ford is one of our like core clients. And actually my story with Ford started with Satama, because I mean, this office that you see was actually the place, the Ford factory in Helsinki. So the cars were shipped from the US in bits and pieces, and we were reassembled in that particular building. And all the meeting rooms, just for as an anecdote, were named after Ford models. So you had like Edsel and I don't remember now the names, but I mean each one of was named after a Ford model. After Satama, I joined. So in Satama, so as I said, I mean it was like we were doing mostly digital marketing. But then, I mean, we moved gradually into the field of like services. So we were like, especially with all the telecom players. So be they telephone manufacturers, device manufacturers as Nokia, and you will see so later like an example, or the telco operators with whom we were also working a lot. So with these guys, they started to shift and move from selling devices to actually selling devices that have actually content and functionality, and basically selling the service that goes with it. And we started then, I mean, like kind of like naturally to fall into this service design. At that time, it didn't have a name. Actually, I remember when we were struggling to name what we were doing. I remember with a Spanish colleague of mine, we were actually like describing it as service architects, which I think is pretty much what we were doing. We were like imagining, defining the principles, the structure, the flows for, I mean, services. And this ended up being like a very well-established like field of design today, which is like service design. From there, I moved still in Helsinki to a company, Fjord, which today is probably one of the largest like service design agencies in the world. It was like acquired by Accenture in 2011. But I mean, at the time when I joined, I think there was like one office, and the head office, the original office, was headquartered in London, in central London, and they had just like opened like a very small satellite office in Helsinki with 5 people. So I joined these guys and participated again in the creation of something. Because I mean, Satama, when I joined Satama, it was like a company at the beginning of its journey. Fjord was exactly the same. And I started in Helsinki, and then I moved back to France after a couple of years. And from there, what I did first was actually to, again, I mean, explore a field of design that where we saw the necessity, but we didn't have it. We didn't have a name for it. And it was, I mean, the part I was describing earlier, to make the connection between the business and the design, the work of the designers. And this is something that has many names. I mean, it has been called strategic design, business design, but I think business design is like probably one of the most established way of calling this. And again, I mean, I participated in piloting, trying out, and seeing what it would mean, what would be the content of it, naming it, and basically like starting developing it and establishing it as a core design practice, like across the group that was like by then like developing. After a couple of years, since I was living in France, we had like a couple of opportunities on the French market, and I was tasked with opening the Fjord Paris office. And so we started. I mean, I started like alone and with one designers, and then I mean we grew like little by little. And in 2011, as I said, Fjord was acquired by Accenture. So then I mean I found myself like handling the transition within like we were like still a very small office, especially in Paris, and we had like to face the challenge of integrating into like this gigantic structure. So Accenture, just for the record, by them I think was like 380,000 people. And in Paris, I think they had a good 6,000 or 7,000 or maybe more people. And we were, I think by then, I mean, we were 10 people on our side. So it's just to continue to exist. I mean, to explain what you do, to provide value to such a bigger organization was a challenge in itself. But then I mean, we grew actually that office from France to Benelux. I mean, I was in charge of the whole region. And when I left, I think we were about like 30 people. And had grown, I mean, the activities to quite a substantial level. And then at that point, I was offered to, oh yes, I mean, I missed that one. I mean, that's the part where we were acquired by Accenture. And by then I moved to Turin. So this is missing here. First before moving to Pininfarina, I moved to another small design studio that I heard about from a colleague in Fjord, and which was formed by a former design director of Pininfarina. And these guys, so they are like automotive designers, definitely. And but they said, well, you know, we understand that, I mean, we cannot design cars the way we were designing cars in the past, and that we need to address the design of cars not starting from the object, but I mean starting from the users, the usage, the context, the demands and expectations, and start from the experience that we want to create. And then I mean from there, I mean like bring it back and understand what it means in terms of like physical design. And then I mean not only the tangible part, but I mean also the intangible part. We'll get back to it later. So I joined that company, bringing all that knowledge that I have in experience, and discovering a field which was completely new to me, which is the field of like tangible design, designing physical things, which is amazing. Because I mean, if you recall, I mean, I just put it back. I mean, I've loved, and I've always loved like the designing with and the drawing and the conceiving of like physical things. So that was an amazing opportunity for me, and where I learned a lot. But I mean, after a couple of years, it turned out that it didn't work well. So then I started to work for another job, and Pininfarina contacted me and offered me the position that I have today, where I'm heading the experience and industrial design unit. So I've been with Pininfarina for 2 years. So just to say a quick word about Pininfarina. Pininfarina, which some of you, at least those studying in transportation, may know. Sorry. I mean, I had just like a doubt that I was still connected, but apparently I am. So Pininfarina like was created 91 years ago in 1930, and the name actually comes from the founder. So the founder was called Battista Farina. And Battista was actually a very like small guy. And in Piemontese, which is the dialect spoken here in northern Italy, where the Pininfarina is headquartered, a small person is called un pinin. And then I mean, so he was called Pininfarina. And actually, well, he built this company that was like instrumental to the success of and the takeoff of Ferrari, since I mean Pininfarina was involved in the design of like most of the early years of Ferrari, and to the point where he was granted the right to change his name officially from Battista to Pinin, and then I mean he named his company after his name, Pininfarina. But I mean, if you look at the logo of the company, we will see it probably in some presentation later. It's not a P, it's actually the F from the family name Farina. But I mean, his family name then changed to Pininfarina. And then, I mean, his son took over, and then his grandson took over, and finally died in an accident. And now the second grandson is still there with us as president of the company. So the company studied in the field of automotive design. It was, in Italian, it's called like una carrozzeria. So these are the guys that were actually doing the car body. So they were not only designing them, but they were actually making them. And this is the making is very important here, because I mean, Pininfarina is very much, most people know it for like the design, but actually not realizing that it's actually more, first of all, it's an industrial company, and this perspires in the DNA of this company. So it's everywhere. So initially, these guys, I mean, they were actually hammering. So I mean, to make these beautiful shapes, those were done on a wooden mold. You would put the plates of metal, and those would be hammered manually with wooden hammers and different tools, and to get shapes that are completely perfect. I mean, you would never imagine that this was actually done by hand. And we still do this today for like a few one-offs that we still make for Ferrari, especially. And parts of these one-offs are still handmade, which is like extraordinary work to watch. So it started from there. Then, I mean, they moved into actually like engineering. I mean, the things that, well, under the surface, basically, like, I mean, started to work on the engineering. And then later on actually became a manufacturer. So if you navigate back in time, 20 years ago, most OEMs, so automotive makers, I mean, had production facilities that were still very rigid. So you would design a factory to produce like one particular model of car. And it means that, I mean, all the small series. So for instance, if you have like a basic model that would come in a certain like typology of car, let's say that you would like to make a cabriolet version of it. Obviously, I mean, a cabriolet will never sell as much as like the regular version. So at that time, OEMs were not able to manufacture these small series. And this is the business. Am I muted again?
No, we can hear you.
Okay, no, because I mean, I saw that was muted for a second. And so that's the business that Pininfarina took, which was like to manufacture like small series for all the big OEMs. And to the point that after Fiat, Pininfarina at that time was like the second largest like car manufacturer in Italy. I mean, I think at the peak, we were like producing about 80,000 cars a year. But then what happened is that OEMs upgraded their like production facilities and started to have like production facilities that are much more agile, much more versatile, and that started to allow them to do this mass customization and actually produce production of like small series within the frame of larger facilities. And all that manufacturing business was gone for Pininfarina. So Pininfarina has been like literally really facing like a few very difficult years, and to the point that actually it's an Indian group, Mahindra, that stepped in a few years back, taking a majority share into the company and basically helping us like restore and get the company back on track. So that's for the history of Pininfarina in the automotive sector. But what happened is that 15 years ago, when Andrea was still there, like the first grandson, I mean, they started to diversify in two other areas. So first in architecture and then in product design. So, and then, I mean, we still have these verticals today. So even though mobility, as we call it today, because it's bigger than just like automotive, is mobility accounts today for, I mean, I would say, I'm not completely sure, I have to admit. But I mean, if it accounts for like 70% of the business, you still have, the rest is actually made by architecture and product design. Today, we are headquartered in Italy, in northern Italy, and we have like 3 other big locations. One which is mostly linked with engineering, automotive engineering in Germany, close to our like German OEMs clients. And then we have like a design office in Miami, which is very much focused on architecture and product design, and one in Shanghai, and actually a new one in Shenzhen, that are mostly about automotive with a bit of product design. So that's to give you a bit of an overview of Pininfarina and where I am today. So the role that I have, I'm responsible for one of the verticals, which is like in the like product design. We're shifting the definition, and you will see later why. So I mean, we used to call it like industrial design, and we are actually talking today about like product design, which is broader than just industrial design. But then I mean, I'm also in charge of experience design, and experience design, we are going to talk about it several times in this presentation. And I hope by then, by the end of these 2 hours, I mean, you will have like some better understanding of like what are the opportunities, but I mean also the difficulties that are associated with this particular word, experience design. So that was for a long introduction, but I think I hope it gives you some background. So what I would like to drive you through is like some, so I mean, these are like small cases that I picked from my personal archives. Just to, I would not go into the details of any of these presentations, but I mean, I would like you to see the variety of materials that actually design in a broad sense is able to produce, and things that maybe, I mean, or more certainly for some of you, you are not expecting to see. So let me start from by what I was doing like in the early days of Satama, which is like all these measurement and metrics. So as you can see, I mean, even the style speaks for the time when it was written. So we're like back in 2004. So this is a typical exercise that we were doing for analyzing one particular campaign. So it was like, I mean, so all the phones that were code-named before they were launched. So Rio was like the 3200. So what we were doing is that we were just simply tracking, actually, and I'm going there. So we were tracking how is actually like the traffic to this like campaign evolving. So we're tracking typically on a 2 months period to start giving feedback to the client. And then I mean, understanding the very mechanics of it. So in the different areas of the site, what is actually working, what is not working, how people are navigating the site. And this was giving gradually a lot of information for the designers to understand what is working, what is not working in what they do. And then this knowledge, and you will see, so I would not go any further. So you see it's full of graphics and analysis, so it's very quantitative based. But I mean, that input was actually turned into something which, and I'm not too sure that I mean the material will be any more graphical, but let's see. But it was turned into a knowledge base. So here, I mean, you see, I mean, we're like actually looking at the analysis of like the campaigns that we had done in the first half of 2003. And then you see there were like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 product launches in one half. So that gives an idea of like the rhythm at which we were working. And so basically what we were doing is that gradually we built a knowledge base. So this was like AI before AI. So we were like still the intelligence. So we were processing all this data, but I mean to try to make inferences, to build knowledge on top of it so that we can inform and give material and input for the designers so that they can start like designing campaigns that are actually performing better and better over time, that are more and more effective at achieving what they are meant for, which was like to help sell these mobile phones. So again, I mean, I would not go into the details, but I mean, this is one aspect of research that especially in the digital world that we continue to see and we continue to use. So we are using data, we're using quantitative data to actually inform the design. You will see in a moment, I mean, some examples that are actually more related to the qualitative research that I mean, I think a lot of you will be studying and will be experiencing either in your studies and or your professional life. So following that, I would like to show you one of the first example of like service design that we did attached to a device. So again, we are in 2006, so we're a bit later. And Nokia, so this is a very interesting point in time because it was actually exactly 1 year before the launch of the iPhone. And Nokia had come up, so at that time we started to have like we were not talking about smartphones. I mean, we were like still talking about feature phones, so which were like phones with a color screen, which was maybe 600 pixels high. But I mean, they started to have like graphic capabilities. The concept of mobile apps was emerging, but I mean, it was very in the early days. And then Nokia came up with a completely radically different product, which was like a tablet, a connected tablet, and which was running on a completely different OS. So it was actually a Linux-based operating system, so open source. And when they launched this device, I mean, they say, well, this is not a phone that we're launching. It's not a phone with like additional features. It's a completely new class of device. And if you look at it conceptually, what this Nokia tablet was, this 770, was actually the very predecessor of like the smartphones that we know and each one of us like use today. So it was a device that actually brings content and functionality in a portable form, in a connected form, is able to geolocalize you and geolocalize itself and leverage that information for like building functionality and value to the user. So what we did when they came is they came with the device, but I mean, we helped them actually refine what is the value proposition of these things. So what is it? Because I mean, they came to us. I mean, I remember saying that, you know, we want to create this, and that was the name of the project. It was called Total Online Experience. I mean, woo. But I mean, so they came to us saying that, well, we have this device, we have the intuition of where it goes, but I mean, you need to help us actually like understand for whom are we doing this? Why are we doing this? What is the business for us? What is it going what is it going to be for the user? So what will be its identity? What does it do? And what kind of experience does it deliver? So that was and this is a typical like concept definition phase. So maybe today, even the framework that we use it would be a bit different, but essentially we're always looking at the same things. So we started to indeed, I mean, understand, well, I mean, who are the guys, I mean, who would be like buying such a device? Because it was like completely off the charts. So, I mean, there was not even a name, like a proper name for it. Then, I mean, what would be the rationales, the business rationales, what would be the identity? And the identity, what is interesting here is that immediately we describe this thing not as a device, but I mean, as an experience that was building on 3 layers. There was like the physical layer, the tangible layer. There was like the digital layer, the content living inside the device. And then there was actually the website, where I mean, websites was still like the dominant way to access like online content and functionality as something that complements support and actually provides like a way to populate, I mean, this device. So I think this is very interesting because it was probably one of the very first attempt at like talking about experience design, not in the way you will hear it today. So today, when people talk about UX UI, I mean, they typically refer to, oh, I'm designing something that sits on an app or on a website. Well, and we will return to it, but I mean, experience is much bigger than that. And here the experience was squarely looking at something that is tangible, something that is intangible living in the tangible, and something that is intangible living on some other device. And then looking at the offering, like exploring immediately the kind of like partnerships that we needed to build, I mean, to actually populate and bring valuable content for the kind of like target group that we had identified. And then like start defining its user experience on a very conceptual way. But I mean, this is where it started. So talking, well, what does it look like? How does it talk to me? What is its behavior and how is it built? And I mean, I will stop here. I mean, no need to go into further details. And then, I mean, some early explorations of the actual like physical and digital design of it. So as you can see, it's a point where I mean the capacitive screens were not like good enough to be able to use it to be used with your finger. You still need like this little stylet. But I mean, early days of really digital development. But what is interesting is that, so here you see, I mean, from where before we were just like as an agency, as a digital agency, we were only doing the marketing stuff to support the sales of physical products. Then from that project onward, we started like to actually shift towards helping Nokia developing the very content that like sits in the product. And I don't have it here, but I mean, interestingly enough, like a year later, when the iPhone was, this was like, it was a tsunami for Nokia. And we know actually the end of the story. 2 years later, they didn't exist anymore. I mean, that was like that brutal. But when the iPhone was launched, so they came in panic and said, guys, you need to help us. We're late. So we're late on all the technological capabilities. So we're late on the capacitive screen. We know that their screen is way better than ours, and it will take some time before we can catch up. Even worse, our operating system, this was the early days of like hard coding like C++. I mean, is not good enough. So we don't have time to develop like an operating system that would be on par with like what Apple is launching, because they immediately like saw the huge risk that this was representing for them. But I mean, help us build on top of the operating system that we have, which was called Symbian. Help us like build like a layer that will allow us at least to fake it for the time for us to be able to have our own like operating system in par with that of Apple. So we actually developed 2 operating systems, working with some creative technologies, like especially in the UK, amazing guys that were able to hack Nokia's like own phones and systems to build like amazing experiences. But this was too late. So I mean, time is of essence there, because I mean, you may have the ideas, but I mean the time to bring into markets. I mean, it took 2 years, and that was like 2 years. I mean, Nokia simply didn't have that time, and well, we know what happened. Basically, I mean, they died, were bought by Microsoft, that finished like to sabotage the company, and the only thing that remained from that company is the thing that I mean, none of you probably sees, is like all the B2B, so all the antennas, I mean, all the infrastructure for operating the mobile networks. So that was my first foray into services. Then I will show you some of the things that are completely different. So then we move like a few years like ahead in time, and we move to my experience in Fjord in France. So in France, I mean, it sounds a bit cliche, but I mean, France, I mean, God, thanks God, is not only about luxury, but I mean, well, as it so happens, I mean, we do have like a few luxury brands. So we did end up working for Louis Vuitton, for the Louis Vuitton group, for Chanel, for the Kering group, which is actually like a global group with like a lot of French and Italian brands in it. But I mean, I would like to show you and give you a bit of a feeling of like the work that we did for Chanel, and starting from what is the type of research that we do in these kind of like projects. And the type of research, so here you will see this is a service design project. I mean, you will see, I mean, then it goes digital, but you will see later that, I mean, what I'm showing here is actually exactly the same stuff that we do in terms of research when we are designing products today, like be it like, I don't know, a coffee machine or a home farming device, as you will see later, or when we're designing a car for that matter. So that initial, we call it exploratory research, is always a combination of like something that you can do as part of like desk research, but I mean, there is always the need to go and see for yourself, like talk to people, be in the field, face the reality that you're designing for. So even though you are not going to spend like months, so this is not an academic exercise. Typically, I mean, the kind of like field research that you do, we do just enough to be able to allow the designers to interpret all the desk research, all the data that they have access to, and be able to give it meaning in a proper way. Because otherwise, when you only start from the reports, there is a completely disconnect between what you read and your ability to infer, which is based on your own experience. So in order to bring like you as a designer to the proper level of like interpretation, it's paramount to actually have that physical material experience, tangible experience with the people that you will be designing for, the context for in which your designs will end up being used, and so on. So for Chanel, this is exactly what we did. So the brief was, well, you know, we have these stores that we own, and we would like to understand what digital technology can help us to achieve to enhance, I mean, the experience that we're providing to our clients, which means like by way of consequence, like help us like enhance our business. So I would just like go very quickly. I mean, this was the team. It was a very nice representation. So if you compare this representation to the one that I was like showing you earlier, which was just like very dry graphs and diagrams, well, this one is of a completely different nature. So what the guys did, and this is again things that we do like on a daily basis. So at the outset of a project, we always talk to what we call when the stakeholders. These are like all the people on the client side that have a stake in the project that we're doing. So it's not only the people who is our direct client. Maybe I'm doing like for this project, maybe our direct client was responsible for, I don't know, digital retail at Chanel. But nevertheless, the people that have a stake in the project, they go from branding to marketing to salespeople at the global level, salespeople on the shop floor, from the person in charge of the manager of the shop, to the actual sales assistants that are actually the one doing the job on the shop floor. So all these are people that we need to talk to. Well, here they're not called sales assistants. They are called, of course, these were Chanel Beauty, so they are called beauty advisors. So we visited the point of sales, and then we talked to clients. So we interview, we observed. So there is a lot of like ethnological like approaches and methodologies that are being used, observational, even just by looking at like what happens, you get a lot of information. And then I mean, like if you complement it by talking to a few people, asking them about the things that you didn't quite understand, why people were doing this and not that, then I mean, you get a very rich like understanding of what is the domain that I'm addressing as a designer. And then I mean, kind of like extracting. So it's not data, it's not quantitative analysis, but it's like qualitative insights that are very actually that will be the fundamental for the rest of the projects. So here, I mean, they were like, again, the goal is not to go into the details of any of these cases, but to allow you to see and touch a bit the nature of the material that is being produced. So here there was like, you can see some like level of summary. And then I mean like some profiles that emerge. So I mean archetypes of users that later on we will turn into design personas. So archetypes of users that actually exhibit like certain ways of thinking, certain feelings, certain actions. So then I mean you can understand what are their actually, it's not only needs, but what are also them like their drivers, their preferences, and so on and so forth. And then you can see like a number of them. So that's the research bit that we did in this particular project. But as I said, that we're doing in every single project that we're doing. It's always start with a bit of like exploratory research, field and desk. Following that, and I will go back here, we use that material, and then I mean, let me zoom in so you can actually see a bit better. So then I mean, what we did was actually to, and this is something that we do typically together with our clients. So when we start this ideation work, creating like concepts, I mean, to answer the brief that the client has given us, we always start this ideation work with the client. Why? Because even if you do all the stakeholders interviews that you can do in the world, people will only answer actually the questions that you ask them, but they still keep for themselves like a lot of knowledge that you don't have access to in these interviews. However, when you start the ideation work with your clients, so we have like very well established like methodologies for running ideation workshops and so on. These are means for us to actually tap into all this implicit knowledge that they have that they haven't shared with us. So it's an amazing way for us to access to all the knowledge that these guys have. So as designers, what we bring typically is like uh, a set of competence that is horizontal. So in the sense that we're not specialized in any particular vertical, or even if we have like a lot of experience, like in, let's say in automotive, nevertheless, if I go and work for NIO or if I go and work for Ferrari, well, both NIO and Ferrari will know their own vertical much better than we can ever know it ourselves. So we need that vertical knowledge of the client. So I'm making that point because I mean, this is something that you will see in your professional lives that is super, super important. And then based on that ideation work, then I mean our work as designers in this like what we call definition phase is like to expand it, and then I mean to inject our creative like capabilities to come up with ideas and concepts. First ideas, then we assemble them in things that are a little better articulated. I mean, we call them concepts, and that actually answering in part or whole, I mean, the brief that has been given to us. So here, the way we, for instance, documented it was by, this is like, it's called an experience blueprint. And it actually like describes like a long a hypothetical journey, so that a client would have, okay? The kind of experience elements that the digital technology would allow Chanel to create for its clients. So from the moment they enter the shop, the experience that they would have with the shop window. This we will see in more detail in a second, which was a way, for instance, one of the problems that they had, one of the challenges that really emerged is that as a woman, if I'm looking at varnishes, or first, I mean, the color that I see is, I see it maybe, I mean, even if I have like display of the colors, but I mean, I don't see how it actually looks on my skin. And we all have like different typologies of skins and colors and then brilliance and so on. So one of the challenges is that when making a choice, that actually there is an element of information that is missing when you're buying like a nail varnish. It's only when you actually put it on that you know whether it works or not, whether you like it or not. So we were imagining like something, and you will see like an early prototype of it, of something that would allow you, using like actually augmented reality, that would allow you to see like on your hand actually how different varnishes would actually look on your own hand, and allow you to make like selections, play with it, and eventually allow you to make like a choice. So it's not only a better choice, but then potentially the intent from Chanel was actually to create like so many more possibilities and desires, that instead of maybe ending up like with one like nail varnish, which is like what you enter the shop for, I mean, you would go out with like three, because I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, these three look absolutely amazing and gorgeous on your hand. So the different like things were explored. I mean, again, I mean, the goal for me is not to go into the details, but you see that each one is like simply visualized in the form of a simple diagram and drawing with some explanations. And then beneath, well, here, I mean, I would need to zoom out, but I mean, you have actually the whole functional description of like what it means in terms of well, different elements that are constitutive of the experience. Sorry, I don't remember the details here. And then what you see here is that experience, we explore what we could do in the shop, in the context of the retail, but also the experience that we would be like able to deliver to continue that experience once, I mean, our customers return at home, either to their home. And how can we continue adding value to their own experience with a Chanel beauty brand when they are like at home, and potentially preparing for their returning to the retail environment or ordering online and so on. So that's this like experience definition phase, that's where in which we are designing, we're defining at a high level what is that we could be doing. And then, I mean, it gives us already like enough material for being able to evaluate with our clients also the business the business case behind it. So for instance, when we look like through this like long series of 30 concepts, I think we filtered out like 3 that I mean the client wanted to invest in, because this is where they saw the biggest potential. So the first one that we explored was actually this nail salon that I was actually talking about. And what we did, and and this is again now. I mean, I'm starting to explore a new theme, which is that of like, how do we drive the design of our products? So we are talking, and I think this is something that that has been very much like in place in the digital world for like the last 20 years. Actually, these are methodologies that are inherited from software development. So these are actually methods that were invented 30, 40 years ago. So when we talk about agile development, not in the way it is being used today, but in the very definition that it had initially, which is to say, I cannot design like a product by going directly straight to the details. So the way to design any product, be it digital or physical or any combination of the two, is actually you need to move incrementally from the big picture, like roughly what is it? So for example, like what I showed you, the experience blueprint, this is a typical like definition phase in which we are at super high level. So we're not going into any detail, but we're getting a sense of like where it goes. We can evaluate it from a point of view of like the business viability, the desirability for the client, the feasibility, technological, regulatory, business, and so on. And then we move into the next iteration. And then the next iteration, we are going to go into maybe take one time, and we are going to go a bit more in detail. So again, we're not going to go straight for, I mean, the detailed design of it and the detailed specifications. So what we will do typically is we will start like getting into exploring, I mean, what it could mean. I mean, we will start like definitely bringing more detail to it. But I mean, what we always need in whatever we do is like, we need to materialize our ideas, like make them tangible so that we can look at them, evaluate them, and potentially we can use these tangible. So we will be talking about mock-ups, we will be talking about proof of concepts, we will be talking about prototypes. So we can use this material to evaluate our ideas with the people that we're designing it for. So what we're talking here about like running user evaluations. So what we do a lot, and in digital design, you always do it. So basically you, as you develop, I mean, you actually build like different like series of like first like high level mockups, low fidelity mockups, and then I mean like mid fidelity, maybe prototypes, and then I mean prototypes that are nearly the final production code. But along the way, you use this tangible material to evaluate your ideas with the people that you're designing for. And in the early phases, you are not going to validate anything. But I mean, you are going to get a sense by, so this is qualitative research. Typically, when we do user evaluation in these early phases, we will do this with like, we're not even talking about samples of people. That has this is absolutely meaningless. We are probably will be interviewing, I don't know, typically 8 people is enough to give you a sense of where you are. The goal is to get like rich qualitative data that as a designer will give you a sense of, am I onto something that has like some potential, or is it just like wrong? And it doesn't take many people to realize that you're on a completely wrong idea. So I mean, it's I mean 3-4 people will shoot it down very effectively. However, 8 people will never like ensure that I mean your ideas actually will succeed. But I mean, they give you some indication, and it's better to have like some indication than to be totally blind. That's the purpose of like running this user evaluation. And then the more we are going to go towards a finalized product, the more the level of fidelity is going to increase. So we are going to use more resources for creating these like early proof of concepts or prototypes. And then I mean, and then the level of evaluation is going to move from evaluating an idea or evaluating a concept to evaluating the understandability of this thing, its pleasurability, its sheer usability. And then once we put it in the market, then I mean, well, you all use like services, you all use like Google Maps, Google services, and so on. So basically every action that you do is actually tracked and is being used by the digital services that you use for understanding how you behave, what you do with these services, with these functionalities that are like that you're using, and basically all these service providers that are working for you are using this data, are leveraging this data to improve the design of their product and services. And now by now 2021, all of us are used to receive daily updates, like or updates for, I mean, your application has been updated, fantastic. And actually we've come to expect it. So I mean, this is, I mean, how we believe things should be working today. which certainly was not the case like 10 years ago. 10 years ago, over the year update was like still a concept. It was not a reality. Today, for all of us, it's something that has become natural. So all this to say, you see, when we talk about research, so you have this initial research that you can do up front. So we're talking about this exploratory research that allows you to then model a bit the world that you will be designing for. You create this, you get an understanding of what are the archetypes of users that I'm designing for. You simplify them into personas, design personas. You will study that. I mean, these are like design tools that we use to ground the design work. And then later on, we use this evaluative research down the line to constantly allow us to reflect on our ideas and get outside feedback. So not only from the users that we're designing for, but I mean also for the people that will need and that have a stake in the development. So again, it could be the business that will tell you like, guys, your idea is fantastic, but I mean, in terms of cost, it doesn't hold. So you need to find something else because otherwise we don't have a business case. Okay. So then that's business viability strikes it and you need to solve it. Or I mean, it will be the guys like in charge of the I don't know, or in the factory floor that will say, well, I'm sorry, but I mean the shapes that you have, I mean they're beautiful, but we don't have the molding facilities for doing it. We cannot create like such molds. So yeah, if we go out to buy it from somewhere else, it will again, I mean, kill our business case. So you need to simplify. So these are the kind of, this is why we need like something to look at, to be able to allow all evaluation from all these different perspectives. And we will, I will get back to it at the end of this presentation. So back to the Chanel Beauty example, what I will show you now is like, following this experience blueprint, the client said, okay, let's focus on the nail salon. And we wanted to materialize what could be the experience of it, but without, I mean, we had like a few days to do it, no budget. So what you will see here, and I will decrease a bit the sound. What you will see here is actually what we call an experience movie, where it's a mock-up. And if you pay attention to the position of the hand and what you see on the screen in this like a nail salon box, you will see that, I mean, sometimes they're not well aligned, and that's fine. So it's low fidelity. Everybody understands it's fake, but it does the trick of explaining and conveying in a very tangible way what it is. So I leave it to you to watch. So here you can see she's actually, so she's actually like trying like several colors. Okay, this one I like, I save it. Okay, this one I like it as well. And then I think so these are the choices. They say, okay, I want to buy it, like call the sales assistant. So this is a typical experience concept, so which is like created very early on. And typically what we do in this phase is like, I mean, the nice thing is that today we have like zillions of ways. We have technologies that allow us at minimum cost to fake anything that we want to fake. So we can use, and here this was a physical prototype that was like post hoc photoshopped, or at least like it was done probably in After Effects. We can use like, and you will see later, we use VR, I mean, also as a way to prototype very early what we cannot like prototype yet physically, and so on and so forth. So that's that was another example. Maybe looking at the time, I still have time to show you another one. So this one, which has actually a nice typo in it, anyway, is to give you again another view on how we can represent, I mean, these concepts in the early phases. So here, this is something that we did for Brussels Airport. And again, the brief was a bit the same, because I mean, this was with Fjord. Fjord is a digital design company. So all the briefs that we received was, guys, can you tell us what we can do with what digital technology would allow us to do that is meaningful for our business? And here what we did to materialize these journeys, actually, we identified. So this is the result of like the first phase of the first phase of this project, which was like identifying what are the opportunities for Brussels Airport to invest in. And we identified, so it lives, I mean, this journey lives like in different contexts. I mean, from like at home while I'm booking my tickets, on the way to the airport, arriving in the departure hall, into the shopping area, at the gate, and in the plane. Okay, so the way we actually like we decided to illustrate this thing was to have actually one of our designers, I mean, was actually like playing the model, and we photographed him in the actual context in which, I mean, all this would be happening, and kind of made this series of small Polaroids, or faked Polaroids, and heavily photoshopped for sure, just to, again, I mean, to make tangible at minimum cost and maximum effectiveness what is these ideas that we've been thinking, and finding ways to explain them very easily. So I mean, you read this as you would be reading really like cartoons or a graphic novel. So very simple. So that this is yet another way to visualize how you can materialize, like, I mean, these ideas like very early on. I will show you a last example of that, which is something else, yeah, that we did. So now we're back in Finland. So we're back in time. I think Elisa was probably 2000, 2000, maybe 2005, 2006, something like that. And Elisa was a telecom operator from Finland. And there was, I think it's a wave that lasted for maybe a year and a half. There was this frenzy for this, they were called UMPC. So those, I'm looking at the teachers, if there are any here on this call. So you're probably old enough to remember, it was like this ultra portable mobile PC. So they were like very cheap PCs, like small form factor, made of plastic, super cheap. And they were selling like hot potatoes. I mean, they were selling like crazy. And then, I mean, this telco operator came to us and said, guys, we see this, but I mean, people go and they buy these devices from everywhere except from us. So how could we, what is that we could do to actually be able to also like leverage that business? We believe it won't last, but I mean, we would like to explore what it would take for us to be able to jump onto that business opportunity. And what we did, and here you will see an example of something when we talk about experience design. So far, what I showed you, for instance, I mean, the nail salon it's purely what we call a user experience design. So in the sense, it focuses on the experience that a user would have with a specific product or service or device, whatever it is. When we talk about customer experience, we're talking about, we're looking at like what happens before someone is actually a user of a product. So all of us on this call, we've had experience with new products. So the first experience that we had with a new product was, oh, we saw this ad. Maybe it was like a poster in the street, or it was like an ad on Instagram, whatever, wherever we saw it. That was our first contact with the brand and with the product. And then, I mean, it caught our attention. So maybe we saw it a couple of times, and then the third time we said, wow, I would like to know more. So maybe we went and do some like online search, or we clicked on the link on the Instagram, on our Instagram thread, and then went into the discover, I mean, that product and said, actually, it's like super interesting. Actually, maybe, I mean, we did like a couple of like back and forth, and we decided to buy it. So then there is this purchasing experience. How do I buy it? And then, I mean, receiving it, unpacking it. I mean, my first time experience with this product. And then, I mean, at that point, I become a user. So what you will see in this little experience movie that I will show you here is actually an exploration of like that journey from the first encounter with the product. How would we communicate about this offering? And you see that this offering is actually a combination of a product and a service. Very similar in a way to what I was showing earlier, Tableteer, the project for Nokia. So you will see, I mean, how we actually conduct the discovery, what is the language that we use, how we speak, and how do we describe a concept that is not an easy, a simple concept. It's something that did not exist at the time where, I mean, we were creating this. How we engage people, so that, I mean, once, I mean, that we have like someone that is interested, that goes onto our website, what is the experience that we deliver on that website? How do we allow people to purchase that offering? And what is the experience that they have when they receive it at home? So again, I will go full screen and I will let you watch this little movie.
On your home PC, you have so many ways to keep in touch with those that matter most. But when you leave home, reaching others is not so easy anymore. Sure, you can use your voice to stay connected, but why just call? Imagine if you could take all of these services with you. Imagine if you could stay in touch your way. Introducing Elisa Touch, a unique package that complements your mobile phone. It's a mini computer, a set of easy-to-use services and features to help you quickly connect and type your messages, compose your emails, chat with others, and more, all wrapped up in a bag with your choice of design. Make it your own by building your personal Elisa Touch package. Select the color of your mini PC, the services you want to have, and the bag to carry them in. All you need to do is take it out, open it up, and you're ready. Always connected, always on, and ready to use. Elisa Touch. A way to...
So, enough of that. So I think, I mean, it's an experience. It's a very old one, but I mean, I still like to show it, and I'm using this and showing this to clients, I mean, quite often. It's a very like tangible illustration of what is it to design like an end-to-end experience, and to focus not only on what happens once, I mean, you have an actual customer, once someone has like bought your product, but I mean, how do you actually support all the things that are going to happen before, all that customer experience, that journey? And then, I mean, by doing this, one thing that I just want to pinpoint in this example is that what you see here, actually, the use of the iconography that we ended up like leveraging for the advertising content. So that's the way, I mean, we use actually to the assets that we use to describe the functionalities, what it does, what we use on the website to then, I mean, open up like all the different like service components, and the things that you find again when you receive it. I mean, you still find, I mean, the same kind of like semantics in the UI. These actually stemmed from the thinking that we had when we were like working on the project, finding for ourselves a way to represent something that is like largely intangible, that at the time where all these services, nothing is new here, but they were all scattered on different platforms. Email was at that time definitely not living on your phone. It was like not mostly living on a computer. Video calls, these were the early days of Skype. So, I mean, you had like some phones had the capability, but most people, I mean, their knowledge of your video calls would be on their PC, as opposed to messaging and calls that were like definitely living on the phone. So here, this thing was trying to put together these different services, the different contexts in which they were living then, and assemble them into an end-to-end offering. And it's because we were like struggling. We had an understanding of what it could be in terms of functionality, but how do we talk about it? And actually, we ended up leveraging these little like doodles that we did for ourselves on the whiteboard. I remember very well I have the picture in my mind, and actually said, well, actually, why don't we use these little doodles also to support, I mean, the way we tell the story, the way we engage the people. And then, I mean, this is an example of where you see the interplay between UX design and CX design. So marketing is not an activity that happens like after the fact. This is, I mean, how marketing was like driven like years back across the world. I think, I mean, Apple is the one with Don Norman. We will hear him like a little later in this presentation. Is really the first one, the first company that started to address like marketing as a design object. Marketing can and is being designed. exactly as we design like a user experience of a product, of a service, or of anything. So now let's move into enough of services. But I mean, well, I mean, you've seen, I mean, even though we've been talking of services, I mean, we've seen, I mean, how we've moved from things that live only on a PC to things that actually like start being embedded in devices, into objects, into spaces. So now we will go into a very super interesting project that we started, I think, a bit more than a year ago here at Pininfarina in product design. So the project I will show you, and here I will go through a bit quickly, but I mean, there's some video material that we like to show you, because I think they are interesting in their own respect. But it's a company that came to us. They wanted to develop, or they had the technology to they have developed a technology for like building a home farming device. So for growing at home, essentially greens. So it's like salads, plants, herbs, maybe, I mean, very like small tomatoes, like to some extent, but it's essentially greens. And so, I mean, it's powered by technology. So, I mean, they actually, what they're able to do, there are two things that they're doing, that they're working hard on the life science. So that is like how to optimize the quality of seeds for being grown into a home farming environment, as opposed to 99% of the seeds in the world that actually like being optimized for growing in a field. So that's one aspect of the work that they've been working on. And then the other one has been on the AI, and kind of like equipping their prototype that they had with all sorts of sensors that actually allow to monitor in real time the growth of the plant, learn from like over time. So I mean, there's like a self-learning capabilities that is built, and optimize then all the elements of that are contributing to the growth of the plant. So it's like the climate, the air, the humidity, the temperature, the water, the nutrients, and so on and so forth. So they came to us a bit by accident, because I mean, the guy didn't know Pininfarina. He's like, I mean, he's a super nice guy. I mean, we become actually good friends by now. But I mean, he's just not interested in cars. He knew nothing about Pininfarina, but a friend of his knew, and say, you know, since his idea was to go for, I mean, to do something like not even premium, but I mean, like top luxury. So his idea was, I mean, I'm going to do something that is like so amazing that I'm going to sell it like 100,000 euros like a pop, which is like crazy. And then the guy said, well, if you go there, I mean, you should go to Pininfarina. I mean, these guys, they've been designing Ferraris. I mean, they will be designing an amazing box for you. So he came to us for designing the box, literally. But then we started to engage him when he came. And actually, very quickly in the conversations, I mean, we were able to raise some questions to him, which were like, actually, are you sure that there is a market for it? Or are you fantasizing, I mean, that market? Are you sure that actually there is a market for like buying like a shelf, however beautiful it is, even if it looks like a Ferrari, but that will cost like 100,000? I mean, that's quite expensive, the salad, at the end of the day. Or is there like a scope for exploring and helping you define actually what is the market that you could go into? What are the people that you could target, and what is the experience that you would be delivering for these clients? And that kind of like rang a bell to him and said, actually, you convinced me, let's do that. So we did this first exploration work, and I will just like drive you very quickly through some material. The message here that I want to deliver to you is that a project doesn't start when you start the project. A project starts from the very first conversation that you have with the client. So actually, one of the first things that I did when I came to Pininfarina, where there was like a complete disconnect between sales and delivery, was to sell guys. There's no way in the world that a sales guy can go and sell substance that he doesn't have any competence on. And because I mean, he's going to shape potentially, he's the guy, I mean, who has the power to shape the very nature of the work that you are going to do for your clients. So it's paramount that the guys, the more senior guys from the delivery, so the designers themselves, participate in these early discussions, because I mean, then it is from that very first encounter with a client that you start shaping the projects and the work that you are going to do with them. And this case, like Angèle, is an amazing example of that, where we've been able to turn a project that otherwise would have been a typical industrial design styling project, and maybe it would have been a 50K project, instead of which it has become a €500,000 project over the course of a year and a half. So don't look at it's not a figure per se, but it's like the gap between 50 to 500. So just by being able to engage the client and show him what design could bring, because at the end of the day, design is as much like a problem solving as it is a problem framework, problem framing methodology and toolbox. So, but we've been able to actually show him and help him basically design not only a better product, but actually design a better business for him. So I will show you a bit of the early material. Again, the goal here is to give you a sense of like, what is the nature of the material that we are creating as designers. So here, we had this again. The discovery phase. So this is the phase in which we were. So what we did is we had like some early exploratory research, based on which we were able to define 4 archetypes, and then design personas: Roger, Sue, and Alicia, driven by completely different drivers and potentially having completely different use for this product, functional and non-functional use. So for instance, for some, there would be definitely a functional, it's the very like what the product does, the quality of the vegetables that it grows, the learning that it allows me to communicate to my kids, are fundamental. Whereas for Roger, it was actually just like pure show off. So I have something that no one else has in the world, and it allows me to brag. And so these are completely different drivers, yet we're talking about the same product in terms of like technology and functional specifications. So what we did was to explore very early on what could be the form factor. So is it like this? Is it that? Is it this? Is it does it live in the on the table floor? Does it integrate in the kitchen like this? Is it like suspended? Does it live on the shelf in the living room or under the TV? Is it like similar to a fridge, or detached, like integrated or detached, or as a washing machine? So you can see, this is a very, very early work, but it raises fundamental question as to the very like volumes, architecture of the product, and where this product will end up. Because if you design a product that ends up in a kitchen, this is a different brief from designing a product that will end up in a living room. We didn't know, because depending on these 3 personas, we could end up with completely different classes of products. So based on that, as you can see, this is the kind of like things that we did. So basically for Roger, it's something that you want to show. So it's like, it's one of the things that you're so proud that it's like, if you had like a Picasso, then you want to show it and you want people to see that you have a Picasso. That would be the same, as opposed to the others that had like different means, different needs and expectations. So then what we did, and I will show you one example, is that we created these experience movies, again, to materialize a bit what could be this end-to-end CX and UX experience with this product, so that it informs like the decision making for the client, to understand, well, what are the typologies of client that I would address? Where do I find these clients? How do I engage with them? What kind of experience they would expect from me? And I will show you 2 movies that are completely contrasted. So first, Roger. So Roger was like this super ultra rich that potentially could pay 100,000 euros for a product like that. Let's look at what would be the experience for Roger. So what you saw here is, as you can see, it's a hyper exclusive experience from the way. At first, I mean, if you want to reach these people, you need to be where these people are, and these people you won't find them in the streets. So I mean, they're not going to in the shop. So the only way to sell something like this, I mean, you're not going to. It cannot be sold as a regular product in a retail environment. So basically, you need to be where these people are, and these people are. I mean, these like particular like species of people. They are the ones, I mean, that actually, they are some of the invitees of Richard Branson with the first flight of Virgin Galactic 2 weeks ago. So if you want to access these people, you need to be where they are, and then being where they are is actually quite a challenge. So if we go to show you another very contrasted experience that we have, it could be maybe Alicia. I think Alicia is a good one to look at. So I think it's clear enough. I mean, it should be clear enough for you what is the difference between the same product, completely radically different experiences in terms of like who you design for, how you access these people, what is the experience that you will need to create to engage them towards your product, and then I mean how to create value. And the value that you create is completely different. One is completely non-functional, the other one is completely functional and related to like education, transmission, and so on. So I don't want to go in any longer on this particular one. What I want to show you, one just like maybe one side note is that you saw that, I mean, these experience movies were done with bits and pieces that we took like sketches that we had done, a lot of material that we liberally like borrowed from the net, and that's fine. That's fine. You don't need anything else. Because, I mean, the only intent is to make like your ideas like tangible enough. So we actually use this material for running user evaluation. So we had like a few people in the target, more or less in the target, let's say. That gave us feedback, and basically that allowed us to center actually on the one movie that I didn't show you, which is Sue, which is definitely like a premium product. So actually it's a luxury product. I mean, but I mean one that is more accessible. At least the target audience is more accessible. You find it's easier to talk to them, to engage them. The price point is lower. It requires less of ad hoc and exclusive like services, which are costing a fortune and unsustainable economically. So this is what we did based on that user evaluation. So then maybe I will go straight into the next one, which is the second iteration. I think this is a presentation of like the second iteration. So once we got a sense of like what is then the product we want to define for whom, an idea of like the price where it would go and kind of like the form factor, the volumes, and so on. What we had in the second iteration, then we went into I'm actually going a bit no, sorry, I'm going too far. I went too far. I think I would like to show you. Let me see if this is the right one. I'm still missing one part. Wait a second, I think it's here. Now, I mean, there is one particular slide, one thing that I would like to show you. So this is the user evaluation. Oh, damn. Okay, I mean, there's one thing that I don't have. Anyway, so there was like a second iteration in which we started to explore a bit, I mean, the design of this thing. So we had like high-level sketches and so on. And what we did was to build a first VR prototype that would allow people to see how this thing would be. I mean, so you could positioning it in your home environment, in the kitchen, in the living room, and we made people react on where actually they would see it like fitting best. What kind of like, in terms of like CMF, color and material, what is the things that I mean they'd like best. So it was like high level evaluation of like where it lives and what does it look like. Then we had a physical mock-up which was super rough. So imagine like a poorly assembled IKEA shelf. That was exactly the nature of the mock-up that we had. So it was really like complete crap in terms of like what it looked like, but that was fine. But it had like the right proportions that the client had in mind. And then we had like one shelf, which what we had made, it was like super rough and coarse. But in one shelf was actually, we could actually pretend we had like a few salads to play with, and we could start exploring how you interact with these objects. And then we brought this, and we had like a set of evaluations that we run in France, where the client is located, with I think 8 or 9 people. And that was fundamental in getting, for instance, like an understanding that this thing was way too big. So the way they had like thought about it actually was massive. And it would be like bigger than an American fridge. No way. I mean, so everybody reacted actually starting from the client. When he saw it, he said, "Ooh, this is big." He said, "Yeah, my friend, this is what you have in mind." So that user evaluation, I mean, allowed us actually to nail something, rethink completely the very physical architecture, the volume and proportions of the product. And then it gave us also already some hints as to the interaction. Then we went into a third phase, and then I mean, I think I will go directly into this video. Let me see. Okay. So then we went into a third phase in which, I mean, we designed, we developed more the physical design, and then the digital design. So how do you interact with these products? Because it actually requires like support, and there is like a service side to it. So what we did there was we ended up again creating 3 prototypes that you will see in this movie. One was like, again, another virtual reality prototype that we used for mocking up the things that would have been too costly to mock up in that particular phase, which is we wanted to explore the perception of people for the way this thing opens. So it's like you actually open it with the tip of a finger, open, close. It has dynamically varying opacity. So it senses you as you get closer to it, and then I mean changes the opacity of the windows. So this is what we used like the VR model for. Then we had a physical mock-up, which was simply was polystyrene that was milled here in our workshop. So I mean, very rough, but it had like one shelf that we had like 3D printed. Again, it was not fully functional, but it was like good enough to actually start playing and testing with people. How do you actually plant like a seed? How do you collect a salad? How do you clean the thing? Because it leaves a mess behind it, and so on and so forth, so that we can really like evaluate the interaction. And then there was like another small prototype that was living on a phone, which was there to show what actually is like the side of the Lagrangian experience and how does it feel. And again, we had this round of evaluation. So what you will see here is a very little video summary of that exercise. Let me fit to screen, and then let's see. So here, these are views from the VR mockup. So people playing with the opening. It was very interesting for us to see, I mean, what is the position, what do they do with their hands? How do they actually like even like put their hands? Then we were, so there was also a part where we were like the testing, I mean, the pitching to investors. I will tell you more after that. Then I mean, you can see that I mean, like testing the digital mockup, completely non-functional, but credible enough so that actually what you would see on the digital interface was completely in line with the actual plans that we had brought with us for the user evaluation. So we could actually like evaluate the perception and the interplay between the mobile interface of Lagrange and the physical object. And then you can see people trying the collection. Obviously, we were recording all this. This is the guy that you see in the background is the owner. So here, I mean, we were like testing like the cleaning. So this particular thing that you saw, I mean, allowed us to rethink completely the way we designed the capsules and the capsule holders, which were a mess. So that simply was not working. And had we not run this test, we would have never known. And then there was the last thing that we were testing, actually, the capability of using VR for like running like online like configurations. So where you can like actually play with the CMF. So as you can see, even this VR, you will see later. Yeah, this guy says, I mean, you say, well, I have to say that it's amazingly beautiful. So what is interesting is that the level of VR that we used there was like still relatively rough, but it was good enough, because I mean, once you are like in this immersive environment, then I mean, the illusion is actually works quite well. We did, and unfortunately, I forgot to prepare it here, but I mean, now in the phase in which we are, we have now developed like an augmented reality application that the client is using for demonstrating when he's talking to clients. So for instance, he was visiting a yacht show in Monaco a few weeks back, and he was going around like all yachts with this like augmented reality app, which then I mean has like the resolution is as if you were looking at the object. And he was using this augmented reality app to show the object in context, and a super yacht is a context for Lagrange. So then I mean, this is how you can also continue using these technologies like in different phases of the project. And finally, what we did in this project is that we not only continue to develop the product, the user experience itself, but we also have like the client build its business case to go and pitch investors. So he was like financing everything on just with his own company up to that point, and then he needed to actually like get investors on board. So actually, we helped him build the entire like investor pitch deck. So which is including the business case. So we worked obviously with other like business consultancies to complement our own capabilities, and down to creating the actual website for the product. So here I'm just giving you this like a video capture that I did of the website. So where the website is actually talking not about technology, it's talking about an amazing experience that lives in a particular context, and kind of like explaining like the key pillars of these things. It's an extraordinary experience, like for a number of reasons. It's one that is effortless. So the physical interaction, the digital interaction with it are completely effortless. It's a living experience. This is amazing. You actually, it's a product that allows you to create life, and you see it like happening, and then it's amazingly beautiful. So we did this kind of like exercise for him, but we also created, for instance, like content for social media in the pre-launch phase. So, and I will show you a couple of examples, but I think this I hope helps you like see and discover the amazing gamut of things that design can produce. And this is like why this profession that we do is so amazing, and why we love it so much. So I will show you some of the social media content that we created. So we had, in this like social media content, we explored different themes. I show you yet another one. All right. So enough of Lagrangettes. I think, I mean, now you got like an idea of like what, and then, I mean, I think what is very nice in this project, it really goes from the high level ideation, really helping a client figure out where to go to have like some chances to succeed in its market, down to supporting him to go towards investors, towards like selling. And now we're actually in a phase where, I mean, he started building the first prototypes, and we continue supporting him in the in this like development phase. But I mean, at the same time, he has also, we are actually he's licensing the brand Pininfarina to, so the brand Pininfarina will not be on the object, but he will be leveraging the Pininfarina brand in all his communication material to say that he's been like, this has been designed with Pininfarina. Because I mean, then, I mean, the brand itself is like a means for him to accelerate the go-to market. So it's for me, it's like the most amazing story that I'm able to create, like since I joined Pininfarina, because I really used it internally to show to the company all the things that we can do that we had no idea that we were able to do. So I like it very much, as you can hear. So then, I mean, I would like to, for the benefit of the people that are transportation designers, our transportation designer friends, I would like to show you another things that we did, which I think is a very interesting case. A year ago, so that was in, so I joined Pininfarina in the summer 2019. And every year since like the Geneva Motor Show has been existing, which I think is 40 years, Pininfarina has been there. And then, I mean, on that year, we wanted to communicate to the markets that Pininfarina is actually entering this world of experience design. And that, I mean, there is more to a car than just designing the shape of the car, the interior of the car, and the engineering of it. That there is actually, it can be like thought and design as an experience overall. And then there is like a lot of like digital content and features that is actually entering the car and that is changing fundamentally the very fabric of the car. So what we thought is that, well, why don't we actually build an experience demonstrator? And that's the project that I actually led. And we started, and this is the beauty, internal projects. I mean, by the way, word of caution for all of you. In your life, when you will have like internal projects, are always the worst, because these are typically suicidal projects, because you don't have a client paying, everybody's like, you don't have the money, you don't have the time, everybody has a say. So it's horror projects. But nevertheless, we took up the challenge. And we started on January 2nd, and we needed to be ready by the end of February. We had exactly 8 weeks to start from nothing to something that is actually a functioning prototype that onboards like electronics, hardware, middleware, software, things that we had never ever done in Pininfarina before. So obviously, then, I mean, we had like also to find the partners for doing this, and so on and so forth. So I will show you a bit. It's the making of. So basically, it's like one slide per week, just to show you how we drove, I mean, that the building of that thing. So we started from a very high level definition of like, what is the message that we want to deliver to the world? And basically, there were three things that we wanted to say. We wanted to say that when we're designing like automotive experiences as any other experience, it could be a product experience, it could be a space experience, we're always striving to achieve three things. We want to create beauty in the broad sense of the word. So it's not only what meets the eye, but I mean, it's like the whole delight that an experience that can create. The second thing is that we need to create meaning for the people that we design for. Meaning, by meaning, we mean the functional relevance. If the product that I'm creating is not bringing you any like tangible value, it may be an amazing experience, or then it's a piece of art. But I mean, it won't be a product that we design. And then the third thing is that it's like the impact. So impact is something that is larger, and that the stuff that we do, we have like responsibility, we have social and environmental more and more responsibility. And these are things that we try to inject in every single project that we do, which is like to look at like, what is is there something that we can do that actually will have like benefits that will create like public good for society in general or for the environment. In this particular case, we wanted to address the fact that we have actually now a generation of like young people that are actually much less interested in driving than we were. I mean, my generation, or an aging part of the populations that now has been driving for the last 30, 40 years. And for the last 10 years, I mean, they found themselves in difficulty because, I mean, the HMI of cars has changed radically. It has become so complex that they don't know how to operate it anymore. I mean, I remember still my father, I mean, having like given up completely to try using the GPS. I mean, completely out of control for him, out of reach. So we started from there, and then we started to have like a first workshop in which we simply like putting together all the people that would be working on the project. So again, from external designers, interior designers, mechanical engineers, software engineers, the hardware providers, like try to think what are the experiences that we could be creating that would actually meet that brief. And we decided to target a bit the experience that we would be creating in the near future, to start exploring what an increasing degree of autonomous driving or of driving automation would mean for a user. Because I mean, we keep fantasizing, all of us. I mean, have heard that the message that yeah, in some years, I mean, all cars will be autonomous. Well, my friends, let me tell you that it's going to take some while before we get there. And in the meanwhile, we will have to address like a transition period that is going to be super difficult to address. First, to convince people to trust and to put their lives in the hand of a machine, because it's not anymore like an app that is doing something where nothing is at stake, really. Here in a car, if something goes wrong, I mean, it really goes wrong. I mean, your life is at stake. Or maybe a vehicle in which, I mean, you will trust enough to send your kids like to school by themselves. So these are quite fundamental questions that we have, and that we will be living in there for many, many years to come, with a mix of like cars that will be still operated by people and cars that will start like being able to operate by themselves. And that is going to create interesting design challenges, let me tell you. So we started to have, I mean, that high level definition of what it is, and then I mean, like generate early ideas for the UX and CX. And when I talk about CX, because we were designing not only a demonstrator, we were designing for a demonstrator in a particular context, which is a motor show. So we had to design that experience in a way so that we actually attract the attention of people when they are passing in front of the booth. So we give them an incentive to actually knock the door, like come like closer, get closer, see for themselves, and get incentives to try that themselves. I mean, that demonstrator. So this is the CX part of it. In the second week, we started to move directly. So then, I mean, we had already framed what we believe we could be achieving in these 8 weeks. Then we started to work a bit on the interaction concept. So which was a lot of role play. And I think when we talk about experience, we're talking about narratives and we're talking about stories. And one of the very effective ways of early prototyping when we are designing a story is actually to role play it. So you will see, I mean, there are like several examples of that. Then, I mean, our friends like interior designers, I mean, started to work on the interior concepts. I mean, we had like some product designers helping on the design of the shell. And when our architects were then, I mean, like thinking about the booth and how to position this thing to maximize like its visibility in the context of the motor show. In the third week, we started to move into the detailed design. So here, for instance, I mean, this is actually me imagining the kind of like behavior that I'm expecting to see on the different screens that we have and that we were playing with on the car, and then turning them into very early mock-ups. At the same time, we started to get a sense of like what is the technical architecture that we need in terms of like electronics, sensors, haptic engines, capacitive sensors on the steering wheel, the different screens that we would be using, gesture recognition. So I mean, like, so the software engineers will like start putting this together. We were finalizing the design of like the physical object that we would need to produce in our workshop. And then, I mean, kind of like running some quick internal validation through VR to see if the whole thing was working. another week of like a detailed design to finalize the interior design. And again, I mean, VR was very much used to on board. So actually all the guys that you see here, none of them is a designer. They're like all stakeholders from marketing, from branding, from the management and so on. And then, I mean, at the same time, and this is quite interesting, one of the things that actually proved to be the most difficult that we had not anticipated is, if I go back a few screens, as you can see, in order to create that experience, we need also the context. I mean, for this to work, I mean, we need actually a proper context. And actually what we completely undermined was like the difficulty to create that immersive context. So initially we tasked an agency for doing it. Their output was crap. So, I mean, it really was not working. So we needed to go back, do it ourselves. So, I mean, and we in Turin, we have the mountains like all around us. That gives actually an amazing view, especially in winter, in the period in which we were. The mountains are like in the morning. If the sky is clear, the mountains gets like white. It's an amazing view. And then I had in mind that we need to get that view into the demonstration, because I mean, that we talk about us, it will give a context that we can talk about because we know it fits the brief. So at the end of the day, what we had to do, and I think we will see it in the next slide, we had to do it ourselves. And I think we returned to shoot ourselves like at least 5 or 6 times early morning, 6 o'clock, just to be there when the sun rises and try to produce the right content. Week 5, development of the back of the electronics, starting to assemble the things together, building a bit like some of the experiences of, like, for instance, been triggering and starting the experience, briefing the guys, because I mean, that's the thing that we are not building. It was subcontracting to another company. With 6, continuing in the assembling. So here we had like the first assembly of the bug, and here you can see we were like trying out, I mean, a few things. We had like to make some adjustments on the position of the gesture sensor, on the design of the screens. I mean, there are a few things needed to be fixed. We made like substantial progress on the software development, and that's the point where we actually ended up like redoing the movie ourselves. So it was a bit of, I have to say, a bit of stress, a week of stress, because I mean, we were definitely like lagging completely behind in terms of like the contextual content. Week 7, we started to put everything together. So then, I mean, assembling, I mean, the whole like bug, the electronics, everything together, assembling finally all the content that finally we had like in place, finalizing the remaining content. I mean, there were different things that we still needed to be produced. And week 8 was 1 week of testing. And to make things even more complicated and interesting, this is when COVID started to strike in. So actually the guys that we were like cooperating with for the software development were sitting in Poland. The other ones were sitting in the south of Italy, and we were in the north of Italy. So all of us, we had actually to do the testing using, so we had a very like a sophisticated assembly of webcams to basically allow each of us, wherever we are, to see what is going on, like physically in the bug in Turin, where it was installed. But we made it. So we actually, by the end of week 8, this thing was ready. We had even like the testing with a training with like all the people that would go on the fair. And on the day we put the demonstrator in the truck, then the Geneva Motor Show was cancelled because of the COVID. So, I mean, I can tell you that the level of frustration and disappointment was pretty high, to say the least. But anyway, so now what we've done is that after the initial like COVID crisis, we brought it back. So now the demonstrator is actually installed in our museum, and we use it for like demonstrating to clients. I mean, we run also online presentations, like a number of them. So it has been leveraged, but I mean, unfortunately, I mean, we haven't been able to produce the impact that we were like hoping to produce. In the interest of time, because I mean, I see that, I mean, time is flying really. It seems that I'm extremely talkative. I didn't think I would be able to talk for 2 hours like this. I hope that, I mean, you find like something interesting in what I'm saying, but I mean, yes. I hope that I get some feedback from you guys afterwards. Go to our website on Pininfarina / you will see it, like type Pininfarina Autonomia, and then you will see there like a couple of movies actually like showing the experience of it. Maybe in conclusion, I would like to, there is one thing, because I mean, we have like 4 minutes on the clock, and there is one thing that I would like to leave with you as a takeaway. There are two things. First of all, I mean, I would like you to hear to this guy. And what this guy, wait a second, what these guys, sorry, I go back. What this guy says about experience design. So this guy is Don Norman. He's a former Apple designer. I mean, he was paramount to the success of Apple. And listen carefully. It's a very short presentation. It's 1.5 minutes, but it's really worth like listening to.
A very long time ago, I was at Apple, and you know, we said the experience of using these computers is weak. The experience when you first discover it, when you see it in the store, when you buy it, when you can't fit it into the car. It's in this great big box. It doesn't fit into the car. And when you finally do get it home, opening the box up and, it looks scary. I don't know if I dare put this computer together. All of that is user experience. It's everything that touches upon your experience with the product. And it may not even be near the product. It may be when you're telling somebody else about it. That's what we meant when we devised the term user experience and set up what we called the User Experience Architect's Office at Apple to try to enhance things. Now, Apple was already pretty good, so we were starting with a good product, making it even better. Today, that term has been horribly misused. It's used by people to say, I'm a user experience designer. I design websites or I design apps. And they have no clues to what they're doing. And they think the experience is that simple device, the website or the app or who knows what. No, it's everything. It's the way you experience the world. It's the way you experience your life. It's the way you experience the service. Or, an app or a computer system, but it's a system, it's everything. Got it?
So you can find this one very easily on the web. I've played this to many clients. I've played this internally a lot. It's I think it's a remarkable piece of interview that says a lot. And the guy has like all the credibility in the world. I mean, to talk about it, because he coined the word. Another one that I would like to share with you, it's a bit of a joke. It's a bit of a joke, but it's a very powerful one. You know that it's something that when I was at Fion, my team made fun of me, because I mean I was always like doing something with putting my two hands together, like forming a triangle to explain the very basis of the fundamentals of light design, which is that whatever we do, we need, and I will show you, but I mean we need to always balance and find a balance between making it like what we design desirable for the end user, viable for the client who's commissioning our work, and feasible in a broad sense, technologically, regulatorily, in business terms. I mean, maybe it requires like creating business connections or partnerships. Can we do it? And that was the example of, like I said, that I was telling you before. So our job from ideation to execution is actually to maintain this but to maintain a balance between these three forces that are tearing every project apart. It is very easy to have a project, to see a project actually derail, because all of a sudden someone steps in and say, well, we cannot do it. We can only do this. And then from that second onwards, I mean, the whole project fails. So what my team ended up doing is that they said, you know, that Angela Merkel, still president of Germany, is always doing this with her hands. So we started to dub it the Merkel, and it really is like something that, I mean, and I brought it here in Pininfarina, and they also call it like the Merkel. So I hope that you keep this picture in mind as a metaphor for saying that whatever we do, we need to create emotions for, like, and this is really like, this is what it is about. I mean, for like the people that we design for, we need to create like impact for a client, and it needs to be doable. So I guess I've exhausted my time. So I mean, I would have had maybe a couple of other things, but I think that's probably good enough. And I will stop. I will stop here. I will put back my video.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So guys, well, thanks a lot for listening. I think we still have like 298 people on the call. Amazing. So either guys you fell asleep or you went and do something else. But if you find it interesting, I'm super happy. That makes my day.
Yeah.
Yes.
So good evening. This is India's good evening. It would be afternoon there with Xavier. So firstly, the French pronunciation, like the food, is a bit tricky, you know. So is it Xavier or is it Xavier Blanc? How do you pronounce it?
So in French, I mean, you would say Xavier, but wherever I've lived, people cannot pronounce it correctly. So everything goes.
Exactly. So I didn't want to offend you in the very beginning because it was such a tremendous masterclass. I'm not sure if anyone has covered the entirety of what is experience design, what is system design, how do you think through? And because they are just stepping into the area of design. And when we were having this, we call it your identity. It's our induction 3-day program. And what we say and what we said was that a designer is gradually getting superpower status because they are behind everything. And when we saw that from how experience can be mapped to even getting that, even if you're having one basil leaf, how much of it is carbon footprint of it, how much of it is getting recycled, everything can be mapped when they do a design process for experiencing design through that whole system which you so elucidly said, lucidly created from concept to ideate to design to prototype, again going back the cycle, you know. So I think Xavier, without means it's been a long session, I know that. And today's generation has a little bit of attention span as getting into the evening. There's, I think the second day they are in campus, second week. They're all trying to make friends and trying to just get back to, let's say, becoming designers of the future. So it's wonderful. So because we have had master classes, but I haven't seen one masterclass which has covered the entire 360 degree of how a designer gets to know how he starts, how he experiences, and some wonderful examples. So from behalf of our president, vice chancellor who's not here, he could have come and delivered a vote of thanks. All the entire faculty here, and maybe things get better. We have you in campus, if not this year, at least next year. We have a global event called the Ahmedabad Design Week. It happens in the month of February every year. Last year we had it virtual. We think that we can have it online in 2022, hopefully, fingers crossed. We hope to see you there. We hope to see you there. And if something, even if you represent whoever, and have a very good panel discussion and have a 45 to an hours. And that's all design schools come. And it's a melting point of huge cultural, because this area is very rich in culture. It's an event where there are showcases. It's a festival of sorts. So wonderful. Thank you so much. I hand over to Dr. Saurabh to say his piece, and then let the students go off. And let's hope we have another one very soon on a focused aspect as the students spend another few weeks and get to know their areas of life. Thank you so very much.
Super. Thank you, sir. And thank you, Mr. Xavier. I think what I grasped was, I think a creative person has to be ready to adapt to new way of a design process, and that is what we've seen here. I mean, you worked on a couple of projects which have incorporates like traditional design process, and suddenly you're talking about AR, VR, and all that. So I think a creative person should be ready to adapt and be agile to anything that's coming new in the trend. So that's one what makes a designer a little more exceptional in terms of entirety, and that is what I encourage everyone to. I mean, all the young students here, to really focus on and be ready to learn new things on their way. Yeah, and it was a beautiful. You've touched upon a lot of things, and the width was the landscape was quite big. So thank you very much once again.
So really my pleasure. And I think maybe to comment on what you just said, I think it's fundamentally whatever we design. I mean, the principles of design remain the same. So I mean, it's not in terms of process. I mean, being of course, I mean, at school, in a school like context. I mean, you need to work like the methodology, like looking at like studying by the nitty-gritty details. But at the end of the day, I always like work with a mental framework that is actually super simple. Any design process is like 4 workflows. You do a bit of research that allows you to create something that you make tangible, and you use that, I mean, to evaluate, and then I mean improve and move on iteratively, incrementally, and iteratively. That already is like immensely powerful, and that applies to whatever we design. And one thing that I didn't say is that when I was working for the World Bank, actually, the research that we were doing was actually applied for designing public policy. And then, I mean, I can see the gap and how much we could have been, how much better we could have like, we could have done a job back then if we had had actually like proper methodologies of doing it. And I realized that, I mean, and a bit of the frustration that I had then was in seeing that we were not producing anything that was actually like really meaningful. So we were a bit fantasizing, like a couple of economists fantasizing with their models and convictions, but I mean completely detached from the reality and not being able to bring the actual value for the people that we were actually meant to create value for.
Sure. I mean, yeah, design process, it can be applied to policies, as you just said. I mean, everything, day-to-day life, to policies, to product design, to service, to experience design, and everything actually, systems, and so that's great. So I think we like to say that we like to hear you once again, maybe sometime. And as Sir said, that we like to invite you to India in Ahmedabad Design Week. So we look forward to that. So anyone has to say anything? Any student would like to kind of talk what you felt and how it was? So most welcome. You can switch on your video and you can just go ahead. So we like to hear some voices from students, please. Anyone? Come on.
Don't be shy. So maybe, I mean, if no one does, I mean, one thing that I
You're on mute. Is he on mute?
Oh, hello, sir. Hello. Yeah, thank you very much for. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, thank you very much for this talk. Actually, I mean, it was really inspiring to see all those projects because, again, currently I'm studying in the first year, and I mean, I'm in the foundation year. So basically, we are basically taught the basic fundamentals of design, the elements of design, principles of design, and everything. But I mean, the projects that you showed actually were like really inspiring because actually they were not just based on a certain a certain hardware product or something, but basically they were about the entire experience that basically a person can have, or as a customer even we have when we actually enter a shop or enter a store, and until we actually bring the product to our homes and then do the overall experience, it is actually very important. But I mean, it is I don't think it is that easy to actually do it in real life, because I mean, as designers also, I mean, it is kind of really challenging to analyze and process that whole journey of a consumer. So I mean, I really enjoyed that. Today I actually learned that process in this first time. Yeah, so thank you very much. And also, Pininfarina is like a company that really inspired me, and I really love the Ferrari cars and all since my childhood. So I have the scale models of the cars. Yeah, so and observing this company actually expanding and growing beyond just cars is like really good. Thank you very much for that.
Yeah.
So it was a very interesting talk. So thank you so much. Even the infographics were very nice. Usually presentations don't have such clean and clear infographics, but everything was very intricate and detailed, and it was very nicely put. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you. Palak. Great. Yeah, I think Pininfarina does a lot of work. I mean, most of the people, they know Pininfarina because of the Ferraris, but I think they have a lot of detailed product portfolio and the projects that they do. So that's great to see a glimpse of that. Yeah.
Just to comment on the point made by Palak, and thanks for your comment. I think it was my intent to actually I didn't prepare any specific slides, and it was really pulling stuff from our archives, because then you see, I mean, not everything that we do is like a piece of art. So we try to create beautiful, like, at times you have projects where, I mean, the quality is what it is. I mean, at least the visual quality of the output that we produce. But I mean, it was like my intention was like to show you like real stuff. So not just like something that has been staged for this presentation, but that you also like get to get a sense for like what is the real thing that is happening in the real world.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. So should we should we take a close this session, or anybody else would like to talk about, or we're good to go? Can we? All right.
Okay.
All right.
Then I guess we can close.
So thank you, Xavier, Mr. Xavier, and we look forward to having you again, maybe sometime when, maybe physically in next year.
And just for the Xavier, Mr. Xavier, the Mr. is like on top.
Yeah, great. Okay,
So it's
Xavier.
fine. And no. I mean, I would be absolutely amazing to visit you guys
Yes.
in your university. Hopefully, I mean, things get eventually better, and we can resume our meeting face to face.
Sure.
Okay, guys, all of you, I wish you a fantastic studies at Kanavati University. I think you're in good hands. Enjoy every bit of it, and you're ahead of an amazing profession and career. Good luck.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir.
This was so insightful.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Yes,
you.
bye.
Bye.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir.
Have a good
Bye,
day.
sir. Thank you, sir.
Bye, sir. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.